If the Lakers want to tank their franchise, they make this move.
Okay.
This is a dumb move. The Lakers hang up that phone.
No.
The Lakers can't go big fish hunting. They got to go for...
Let's get it. Welcome back to another edition of the Hampton Show. Joel, how are we feeling today?
I'm feeling great. Knicks lost Game 5, but we'll bounce back in Game 6, and I have no doubt in my team.
Today we're discussing one trade that would save every team who has lost in this year's NBA playoffs. We're also going to talk about a potential Eastern Conference Finals matchup, but we're going to start with right where you started, bro, with your New York Knicks. New York did lose Game 5 in Boston on Wednesday, and if you're watching this after Game 6 on Friday and they won, you can fast forward to our Eastern Conference Finals preview, which we're doing later in the pod. But Joel, I just want to check in on my friend. I want to know if Game 5 concerned you at all, what your plans are for Game 6. Have you wavered on that NBA Finals prediction at all yet? How you feeling about it?
I have not. I still have the Knicks making the NBA championship and winning it all. If the referees continue to officiate the series like they did in Game 5,
that's where we're going.
I don't think the Knicks have a chance. And I think that's where we are going. I think it's the most obvious place. Cat fouled a ton in the first half. Jalen Brunson picked up 4 fouls in 9 minutes. I mean, what are we talking about here? You know, Jalen Brunson doesn't even foul like that. So, you know, if they're going to officiate the game like that, then maybe we do come back to Boston for Game 7. But if they're going to officiate the game fairly, then the Knicks will take care of business in Game 6 at MSG, and then move on.
I expected so much better from you. The first thing you go is to the refs. By the way, Karl Anthony Towns, all 100 of his fouls were blatantly obvious, and the way he flails his body is very concerning and zesty to me. The Jalen Brunson thing I get. Maybe that one foul you were talking about shouldn't have been called, but the other 4 or 5 should have. He should have been close to fouling out, even though he did foul out. If you're going to let Luke Cornett do what he did, and same with Jaylen Brown, it is what it is. So if the Knicks lose, how do you feel about a Game 7 in Boston? And then we'll move into a potential Knicks-Pacers conference finals.
I don't think they're winning a Game 7 in Boston. So it has to be done in 6 games. I feel very nervous about that potential outcome. And outside of the officiating and stuff, I think Boston did a lot of great things. I think Jaylen Brown came to play, and he showcased that he can do a lot of things as a number one guy. I think you just played the game differently. When you're out there with Jason Tatum and he gets the ball, his mentality is score first. That's what he's thinking of. He knows that his touches are more limited, so he has to take advantage of his opportunity. Where I think in this game, he is the guy. He is the main focal point. He knows the touches are going to be there, so there's room for him to play make. There's room for him to score. The game can come to him a little bit easier. And then Derek White and Payne Pritchard, I thought, were spectacular, and the Knicks have a trouble containing guard penetration. And I think the Celtics did a great job at exploiting that. And Cat has to be better. Cat can't keep fouling and getting us into a bad predicament, because then Mitchell Robinson comes in and they start hacking him. And also, we don't have another big outside of Mitch to really come in the game for Cat. And I just didn't think our players played well. I don't think Brunson played well. I don't think OG played well. I don't think Mikal played well. So they got to bounce back in Game 6. But Boston did a lot of good things, and the Knicks have to adjust to what they're doing because they're not playing as much isolation basketball. This past game in Game 5, they had the lowest amount of isolation possessions that they had in any game in this series. They're moving the ball. They're attacking mismatches. They're not settling, and I think that's a big thing that got them into trouble to begin with in this series.
Yeah, I want to make this clear. We talked about last week. I think Game 3 will decide this series, and I think it already has, Jason Tatum or not. I think the Knicks do win in resounding fashion on Friday night. But I must say this, Joel. You see what I'm wearing? This green and white and black, obviously. It feels pretty good. And as we move into a potential conference finals, I am concerned about your Knicks. Against the Pacers, this is right where they broke down last year. I'm watching Josh Hart get bloodied in the face. I'm watching Tom Thibodeau leave his starters in until the 2-minute mark of a blowout game. I'm sitting here with my buddy Owen last night watching this game, and I'm like, they have a 25-point lead. Why are the starters still in? I'm watching them have to play an extra game on Friday night in Madison Square Garden. Tyrese Halliburton and those guys enjoy playing New York. They enjoy playing the big market, being the underdog, and now they're seasoned. They thrive in this position, and New York already has that lack of depth like you were just talking about, and now they're having to have a third-round series after playing potentially 12 to 13 playoff games already where they have to play the fastest team in the NBA. That's exactly why I'm taking the Pacers in 6. I hate that I'm picking against your Knicks every time we come on this podcast, but they have earned this Celtics series. They've taken a step, and because of that Tatum injury, prayers up to him. I think their window just got a lot more pressure put on it.
The biggest thing that I'm worried about is breaking down. Jalen Brunson has took a couple of shots throughout the playoffs where he's got it hurt, and the ankle is an injury that he's dealing with. Against a team that full court presses, that pushes the pace, it's going to be very tough on him. So there are some major advantages the Pacers have in that series, and the Knicks are going to have to be prepared for it, and they're going to have to play their best brand of basketball. I don't think that throughout these playoffs we've gotten a consistent team. Against the Pistons, they weren't consistent. They came back in fourth quarters, much like the Celtics series. You can argue Celtics and Knicks, this playoff series, for most of the time, the Celtics have looked like the better team on the court. And I think that the Knicks are living on an edge that they can't keep relying on. So I'm hopeful that against Indiana, which their offense is much better, I think, than any team they've played so far. I think it's also a weaker defense. I think Karl-Anthony Towns should impose his will on Siakam or Miles Turner. I think Jalen Brunson should have his way with whoever's guarding him. I think it's an easier defense. And the Knicks, I'm still going with them to make the NBA Finals.
I think it's a nightmare matchup for them because of the pace of play. We're talking about lack of depth and playing all of these guys 40-plus minutes now for the 8th month in a row, and they're going against the fastest team in the NBA. Yes, it's an easier defense, but it doesn't matter if the Pacers are going to be coast to coast through off a made basket. I think the Pacers, I have them winning in 6. And if it was Cleveland, I would feel so much better for the Knicks, not just because it's 2020 vision and Cleveland just lost in 5 games, but because I have watched that New York-Cleveland series before. I think guys like, by the way, Jared Allen, Hall of Fame shrink job in this series, but I've seen guys like that be scared to go into the Garden. I don't think the Pacers are scared to go into the Garden. And even though the Knicks have revenge on their minds, their bodies may not allow them to. And watching Tom Thibodeau do what he does at the end of that game 5 is something that I actually took away from a blowout game. And I usually don't take away much from blowout games.
I think you have every right to feel that way. The Patriots have shown, I think, the most of any team in the playoffs consistently that they have been, you can argue, the best team in the playoffs. So I think the Pacers are underrated. It's unfortunate that the Knicks are going to have to eliminate them. But they got a chance to go to the NBA Finals. I'm not going to knock them, and I'm not going to overlook this matchup.
Unfortunate that the Knicks have to eliminate them. How many games do they eliminate them?
I think it goes 7.
I think if the Knicks,
I think it goes 7.
7. And I do want to be clear. I've texted you on the side off air. This is not just a bit. I do want the Knicks to win. I'm just predicting the Pacers to win. I'd much rather watch a Knicks Thunder series or Knicks Timberwolves series. I think the Knicks Timberwolves would be the dream finals matchup with the teams left off, obviously, a few months after they make that blockbuster offseason trade. But I do want the Knicks to win. I just got the Pacers in 6. Speaking of the Minnesota Timberwolves, though, they did defeat the Golden State Warriors on Wednesday night. What do you think is a better matchup for the Timberwolves? Do you think it's the Nuggets or the Thunder?
I think it's easily the Nuggets.
Me too.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I don't think the Nuggets have the depth. I think Minnesota has had their number since the second round last year, and they cannot guard Anthony Edwards. And Julius Randle is taking that next step in his game, like I said he would, because I believe in Julius Randle. And they look amazing. I think they're going to go to the NBA Finals.
The Timberwolves, even if they play the Thunder, are going to the NBA Finals. Did I hear that right?
Absolutely. I don't think OKC's ready. I think they're young. I think you see some of that inexperience bleed through their team. And I think Julius Randle is the best second option left in the playoffs right now.
It's not a sentence I thought I would hear. It's hard to argue with the way he's played. But outside of the Lakers series, it feels like a kind of cop-out second-round matchup for them. It's hard to take anything away from the Steph Curry-less Warriors. Yes, they beat the Lakers, who had legitimately no big men. I think they're going to run into a problem whenever they have Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren taking turns on Julius Randle. Whenever they have Alex Caruso, Kason Wallace, Isaiah Joe, any of their perimeter defenders, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on Anthony Edwards. I think it's going to be a tough matchup. If they play the Nuggets, I got them going to the NBA Finals, but until then, I got the Thunder going. And the Eastern Conference thing is whatever. The Thunder is by far the best team remaining on the West and the Eastern Conference side. And the fact that you believe in the Timberwolves that much, Hey, I hope you're right, and we can see some cinema Timberwolves Knicks in the NBA Finals. Let's get to the reason that we had this podcast, the title and thumbnail of this podcast: One Trade to Save Every NBA Playoffs Loser. I know the Celtics have not been eliminated yet. We are going to include them, and of course, the Warriors, who have been eliminated so far. We're going to start with the LA Lakers, though. My opinion on this is if you don't want to give up Austin Reeves, we've talked about players like Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, Nick Claxton, wherever you want to go. But if you're Rob Pelinka, would you make a call about Joel Embiid? Stay with me.
No,
Stay with me. He's owed $55 million next year, and he's still set to receive $193 million from that 3-year Supermax. I don't think 76ers fans would be that upset if they weren't locked into that. It would take Reeves, Hachimura, Vincent, and Kleba to match the money. Who hangs up the phone first, LA or Philly?
If the Lakers want to tank their franchise, they make this move.
Okay.
This is a dumb move. I think there's no reason to make it. I think Joel Embiid is not washed because when he's healthy, he can still play, but he's unreliable beyond belief. There is no possible way you can rely on him to stay healthy. And I think we have seen in the past, these teams built off of injury-prone superstars don't last. I don't think the Lakers need to make a drastic move. I just think they need to make a move. I think they need to make a move for a center. The Lakers hang up that phone. For me, I'm not going big fish hunting. I'm getting that small fish or that big fish in the small pond. That's what I'm going to go get. I'm going to go get Walker Kessler. I'm trading Dalton Connect to the Jazz with a 2031 first-round pick, and I'm getting Walker Kessler, a center who can protect the rim, who can catch lobs, who can add to the defense, and I'm keeping the entire team intact, and I'm just adding that piece.
I think if they could trade Dalton Connect and a 2031 first-round pick, they would have already done it. Walker Kessler, I understand the trade rumors that have been surfaced around him. We have not seen him contribute to winning basketball at any sort of level throughout his tenure in the NBA. And whenever I know, but still, I don't think that I don't envision that being the anchor to Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. It's him being able to save everything like Rudy Gobert can do or did for the Utah Jazz. I don't see Walker Kessler taking that position. And to me, this is trading for Walker Kessler and that saving the season, to me, is crazier than not trading Austin Reeves for Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid, I'm not saying they should do it. They should go big fish hunting. I think it is a Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, Nick Claxton move, but I don't think it's a Walker Kessler move. That's all I'm arguing.
Walker Kessler's making $4 million a year. He's on a value contract. You trade Dalton Connect, who they were already willing to give him up for Mark Williams. I think that's a great move. Joel Embiid, he can't stay on the court. Why would you trade for him? Austin Reeves, I'd rather have right now than Joel Embiid, 100%. Reeves actually plays. He averaged 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists this past season. And you talk about not contributing to winning. He's on the Jazz. What is he supposed to do? I remember vividly when the Mavericks made the finals with Luka. Who are the 2 players they traded for? Daniel Gafford, who was on the bum Wizards, and PJ Washington, who was on a bum Hornets. And they were the needle movers for them to get over the hump and make the NBA Finals. And who was the other center? Oh, yeah, a rookie drafted out of Duke who averaged 4 points.
I'm glad you brought up Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively, because now that they have Cooper Flag, do you not think it'd be a lot cheaper to call up Nico Harrison, who Rob Pelinka already has a relationship, and get Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively? And you probably wouldn't even have to give up that first. I think that's the move you make over Walker Kessler. I'm not arguing for Joel Embiid over here. I thought that was a fun conversation, but I'm just saying Walker Kessler is not the guy to spin the asset on. The guys who are proven, who have already done that, is Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. I know that Kessler's making $4 million a year, but if my brain's right, I feel like that's coming to an end, and they're going to have to pay him. I don't know if I'm ready to commit to Walker Kessler long term. I think Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively have proven that they can make the NBA Finals with Luka Doncic.
Well, it depends. Daniel Gafford's making $14 million per year. He is also on an expiring contract, and he's looking for starting center money. The problem with that is Daniel Gafford can't guard in space. He can only block shots, which is valuable with a certain type of defense, but he cannot anchor a defense. So you don't want to pay him 20 to 25 million to be your center. Walker Kessler, because he's been on a losing team, because the value around him might not be that high. He's been on the trade block for a while. You could maybe sign him to a Mitchell Robinson type deal, 3 years, 30 million, 35 million for Walker Kessler, a starting center. I'm fine with that. I just think the Lakers can't go big fish hunting. They got to go for the Kesslers, the Rob Williams of the world. They have to go for
No,
those
no,
guys.
no. Don't
Yes.
do Rob Williams.
Yes.
You just went on a spiel about injuries with Joel Embiid, and you have the absolute audacity to bring up Rob Williams
Rob
when
Williams
you
just played more
just made
games
a
than
case
Embiid.
about being injury prone. Walker Kessler, this is not against him, but it's who this is coming from. It's the messenger. This is from the guy who shut down the Miles Turner possibility with the LA Lakers, which is, I understand, realistic, but you shut down that because he was not a lob threat. Derek Lively is a lob threat, and he is younger, which means there's more years remaining on his contract. Derek Lively is a better
Dallas
fit.
is not going to give them Lively.
Okay, we'll see.
Why would Dallas give them Lively?
Did you think they'd give him Luka Doncic? Rob
No,
Pelinka,
but that's
to me,
different.
should be the executive of the year. I know you disagree with that, and we've had that argument before, but what his relationship did and the manipulation of Nico Harrison is not talked about enough. I think he could do it again.
I disagree. I think Derek Lively, the Lakers just don't have any player that they could trade for him that would make sense. I'm not giving up Austin Reeves for Derek Lively. I'm not giving up any of those guys. And the Mavericks already have a plethora of wings. They don't need DFS. They don't need Rui Hachimura. They don't need none of those players. The reason why the trade was able to get done was because the Lakers were able to trade Anthony Goddamn Davis, who is still a top 10 player in the world when he's healthy. That's why. That was the piece in the trade. The Lakers don't have no assets to go get a Derek Lively. That's what I'm saying. You got to go realistic hunting. And Rob Williams played more games than Joel Embiid this past season.
Okay, what about over the last 5 years? What about over the last 5 years? It's probably the same. Can we not argue that?
It probably is the same, but what you have to trade for Rob Williams compared to Embiid is not even close. You at most you give up Gabe Vincent and like a second round pick for Rob Williams. You don't give up nothing crazy because of that history. With Embiid, you're talking about giving up Austin Reeves and your depth for a player who can't even stay on the court.
Yeah, I mean, Walker Kessler, it's at least an argument for you, Rob Williams, compared to Derek Lively and Walker Kessler. We're not going to talk about
Walker Kessler, Rob Williams, that's the equivalent of getting Lively and Gafford.
All right. Side note, by the way, speaking of the Mavericks, I am making a TikTok about them for tomorrow, and I saw the guy who was in the lottery room. I think it was the assistant GM to Nico Harrison. He had this quote that stood out to me as funny because he was asked about obviously winning the lottery and what he thought the reasoning and stuff was, outside of the balls bouncing the right way, and he was like, we played the right way, we did not tank. And I felt like Washington and Brooklyn and Utah and all these teams already had the knife in their chest, and the fact that the assistant GM at the lottery just twisted a little bit is not only hilarious, but I think it's a sign of the future. I think Adam Silver is happy about how the lottery went because of how disgraceful tanking is for the sport. And I saw Mike Greenberg say this. He wished the NFL did the same thing. I do too. I'm not saying that the 10th or 11th team should win it every year. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is I think this will help as far as the resistance to tanking. You can't just do the tanking playbook that Danny Ainge was used to whenever he drafted the jersey I have on with Jason Tatum. What was your reaction to the lottery in whole?
It was a coincidence that they got it and they won. Nico Harrison got a lucky break.
Yep.
Because he got bailed out for making one of the worst moves that we've ever seen by a GM. Sure, the Mavericks tanked the right way. You want to say they played the right way. Kyrie got hurt.
It's not what I want to say. It's what the assistant GM said.
Yeah, no, I'm just quoting what he said. Anthony Davis gets hurt his first game with the Mavericks. A lot of unfortunate bad luck string of events had to happen for them to be in this position in the first place. And even then, it came down to a coin flip between them and the Bulls. So who was going to get that 1.8% chance to draft Cooper Flag? When he says they played the right way, the Wizards are bad. They suck.
Yeah.
They're not trying to lose games. They're just not a good team.
Yeah.
The Hornets, LaMelo was injured the entire year, pretty much. And Brandon Miller got hurt very early in the year. They're just not a good team. The Jazz, they're just not a good
You
team.
can't
They
make the
paid
case
Lauri
for Utah.
Markkinen.
I was gonna sit here and listen to Washington and Charlotte, but Utah did not do it the right way. In fact, it took 6 weeks of sitting out Lowry Marketing for them to get fined of not doing it the right way.
Okay, sure. The Portland Trailblazers, very competitive the entire season,
Nobody
went
would have
on a
been mad.
couple of win streaks. A lot of these teams didn't blatantly tank. The Bulls, Josh Giddey has a heater to end the season where he just looks like one of the better guards in the league, and they go on win streaks. They make the play in. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that a lot of these teams tanked.
It's not what I'm saying. By the way, the Bulls lost in the same round of the play-in that the Mavericks lost in. So it's not like they were some terribly worse team. They weren't. I'm not saying that Washington and Charlotte didn't deserve this. What I'm saying is it's good for the sport that it's discouraging shit that Utah did this past year.
I think it's good for the storyline that Cooper Flag went to Dallas. I think it is the most interesting landing spot
Yeah.
because the Luka rivalry, it just makes a lot of sense for them. I'm not, I'm 50-50 on like the tinfoil hat conspiracy theory stuff. They don't do the ping pong balls live anymore. And I think that's a big reason why people don't really trust the process. But what Mike Greenberg said, hell no. I don't think that the NFL should adopt this. If the NFL adopted this, Joe Burrow is never on the Cincinnati Bengals. Are you telling me that a franchise that's bad, a bad team, doesn't have a chance to draft generational players that can change their franchise? If the Bengals never drafted Joe Burrow, they never make the Super Bowl. They never make back-to-back conference championships. They're not relevant right now. And for the most part, I think in the NFL, it's impossible to tank. It's 50 plus players on the roster. It's a highly violent and physical sport.
It's fair.
It's very hard to tank in the NFL as opposed to the NBA,
Fair.
especially when contracts in the NFL aren't guaranteed.
Yep.
So you can't just sit players out and players be okay with it because that gets held against them in contract negotiations. So I think it's impossible to tank in the NFL. In the NBA, I'm fine with the lottery, but I think that these teams that are bad need to have a better percentage chance to get the top pick. When John Wall got drafted by the Washington Wizards, it gave them a franchise star to build around, and they made the playoffs and they were relevant. I think that Cooper Flag, had he went to the Wizards or the Blazers or the Hornets, it still would have been fun. And these teams are in desperate need of that type of franchise changing talent, much more than the Dallas Mavericks. And even last year with the Hawks, much more than, I know Ricochet wasn't a generational talent, but still a lot of these teams I think that are bad, if they're picking at the 7th spot in the draft or the 6th, like the Wizards are, the prospect drop off from going from Cooper Flag or Dylan Harper to like Con Kneppel is major.
They just flatten the odds, and I'm not willing to overreact to change any sort of percentages after this happens. If we have a third year in a row of this next year, okay. Like, I'm on board with that. The NFL thing, I'm not going to touch. That's your realm. You know a lot more about it than I do. And every point you made was fair. All I'm saying is I wish the 76ers weren't in the top 3 because that's another team like Utah that blatantly tanked. It's hard to remember this because we're not in the midst of it, but if we were having this conversation in March, it'd be a lot easier. Like, oh, this is a lot better for the sport. It's a lot better for the sport that teams like Utah and Philly are not guaranteed the number 1 overall spot. I agree. It is egregious that Dallas won. It's egregious that Atlanta won and that Washington is at number 6 this year. I'm not disputing that. I think the thing that needs to be focused on rather than changing the percentages again is actually having a real-time consequence of tanking these games, because Utah, I guarantee Ryan Smith, the owner of the Jazz, did not give a shit about paying whatever fine they had for Lowry Marketing. Because what they did after they got fined is that they played him the first half and then said he had an injury at halftime and would not play him the second half. That's the shit that was happening in March. And that cannot be the recipe for getting a star player in a small market. The recipe has to be something else. I'm not saying I have a solution. I'm just saying the recipe has to be something else.
I agree. I think the Jazz are probably the only team that I would say blatantly tanked.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, though, I think every team, circumstances are the reason why they got a high pick. The Sixers, Paul George and Embiid got hurt. Jared McCain got hurt. Injuries the reason why they were so bad. With the Spurs, Wemby got hurt. Yep. I don't think that for a lot of these teams they tanked outside of maybe at the Jazz.
this year that may be true. All right, let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. I had a trade target as them as it was hard to pick because they don't have a lot of movable assets. You could use Max Strus and Isaac Okoro to make money match for a Cam Johnson deal. They have a 2030 first round swap, a 2031 first round swap, but that was really the only thing I could come up with for them. Do you have anything?
Trading Isaac Okoro and getting below the second apron, I think that's the only move that they really have to make because right now, as is, they can't use the mid-level exception. They probably can't sign back Ty Jerome.
Mm-hmm.
So unless they trade Isaac Okoro, and you're probably gonna have to attach a pick to that, then there's really no move available for them. I think that makes sense. I think with Jason Tatum being out the entirety of next year, you have to run it back with this team 100%. And you have to see if you can get healthy in the playoffs and then give yourself a real shot.
Yes.
But other than that, I wouldn't touch the core. I wouldn't touch Garland. If it makes sense, maybe Jared Allen. Max Strus is the one that I'm the most open to trading, but it depends on what you get back. But overall, I think this team, you really don't touch it.
It's interesting too because the conversation before this year was Jared Allen and Evan Mobley can't coexist and be at each other's best. I think their 64 win season kind of disputed that a little bit. So I think there is a hint of doubt with the Jared Allen Mobley pairing, but I definitely run it back another year and I think they're going to be motivated to do that. Let's talk about a team who's probably going to make a big swing. It's my Memphis Grizzlies. Obviously, I put Giannis and Kevin Durant as their trade targets, but starting in 2026, the Grizzlies have their own first round pick in the next 7 drafts. Both Houston and San Antonio can probably outbid them for Giannis. I'm not going to sit here and make that case, but I do expect Desmond Bane to be available all summer. Zach Kleiman did not mention his name really at all in his exit interview. He hinted a big change throughout the entire process, but continued to exclude Ja and Jaren from like possibly being moved. Desmond Bane would be enough to get a 37-year-old Kevin Durant looking for a contract. I think you'd have to have a third team because I don't think Phoenix wants a third shooting guard with Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. But they seem like the sneakiest, most likely team and most desperate team for Kevin Durant. Dallas is off the table because of the Cooper flag winning. Houston is off the table because their sights are set on Giannis as of right now. Durant is interested in the Rockets. I get that, but Houston has cooled down a lot on him as this Greek freak stuff has continued to develop. If the Rockets strike out on Giannis, sure, they can turn their sights to Kevin Durant. But until then, I think the Grizzlies should be favored to get him, especially with the assets they have.
Now that you mention it, I actually think a 3-team trade makes a lot of sense with the Grizzlies, the Rockets, and the Suns. With the Rockets, if they don't go after Giannis, I think Desmond Bane makes a lot of sense for them
Yes.
to be on their team because he's just much better than Jalen Green right now. And I think you just get more reliability. The Suns don't need a third shooting guard, so it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to make the trade and have Desmond Bane and Beal and Booker, given they can't move off of Beal. So I like that. You know, they're big fish hunting. I'm kind of under the assumption that I wouldn't trade Desmond Bane. I think he's a really good player. And I think if you get Kevin Durant, it makes sense. But overall, I would just go after another big fish in a little pond. I'm trading Brandon Clark, John Conchar, G.G. Jackson, and a 2027 first round pick for Cam Johnson. And I'm adding Cam Johnson to this team with Ja, Bane, Cam, Edie, Jaren, Scottie Pippen still. You hopefully bring back Luke Kennard. Cam Johnson gives them connectivity, gives them a shooter. It's not a KD move. It's not drastic. You still keep basically 3 all-stars and adding another player and Cam on the team that can average 18 a night. And I think that's the move they got to make.
To me, I'm completely with you. I was literally just having this conversation last night, and my spiel was based off Kleiman's comments. He did say a statement that pissed me off to no ends in his exit interview, and it was, "We are not a veteran wing away from competing for a championship." And my response to that is, nobody thought the Pacers would be competing for a title this year. Nobody thought the Timberwolves would be competing for a title in back-to-back years after making that deal. You just have to be in it. In this day and age of the NBA, you just have to be in the playoffs. And if things break the right way, if Stephen Curry gets hurt in a game 1, You can blink and be in the conference finals. That can happen. And it has happened for the Minnesota Timberwolves. They have earned this run. They went to Denver and won in game 7 last year, but I think that second round series has benefited them. They did knock off LeBron James and Luka Doncic in the first round. I'm not minimizing that, but Indiana now back-to-back conference finals. I think this team with Ja, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson, and Cam Johnson, that is a team that can compete. And as a fan, that's the move I want them to make. But unfortunately, the move I think they will make based on everything Kleiman has thrown out there is this Kevin Durant move. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to trade a guy who matches your timeline perfectly with John Jaren Jackson for a 37-year-old Kevin Durant who will be looking for a brand new extension. That does not make a lot of sense. Not to mention, since Dylan Brooks left, there's not a lot of guys who get into it with other teams. Not to say that that's something required from a team, but a team in this market that has always been something that's beloved. That's why Tony Allen is a beloved figure. Same with Zach Randolph. Desmond Bane has been that guy. He's been the guy getting into it and been the dog for this team. And I think trading him makes no sense. And I love the potential Cam Johnson play because there's not going to be a lot of teams in the Cam Johnson market that have the assets that the Grizzlies have. And I think owning their next 7 picks is huge. And I'm not talking about trading their first rounder next year, even the year after that. But I think as you get into the early 2030s, I think there's going to be real value there for other teams. So I just want to be on record to say I think you're 100% right. They should trade for Cam Johnson.
I like it. I think that makes the most sense. And the Nets, you get the pick. Maybe you ask for one more, but G.G. Jackson is a player that kind of just, he leads your tank. See what he has.
Him and Cam Thomas.
He puts up stats, and that's all that he does.
Yep. Let's move to the LA Clippers. There's nothing that can really save this older roster. It's a team kind of in the same position as the Cleveland Cavaliers in the East. They're really married to Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, obviously. I just put down Gogo Batazzi. The numbers without Zubac on the court are alarming. Yes, they speak to how amazing he was this year, but it speaks to how bad their depth was behind him. And I just think they need some bench depth, especially at the big man position.
They try to address it with Drew Eubanks, and he's obviously not good, so it didn't work. I think this is a trade for Robert Williams. I'm trading Derrick Jones Jr., 3 second-round picks, and I'm getting Rob Will. I think Rob Will is the backup center. He can catch lobs from Harden. He could play defense. I think this is the move.
How much Trailblazers basketball did you watch this season?
I watched quite a few.
Okay. Side note, you think Dallas should go after Anthony Simons?
I do think so, but I don't think they have the contracts to make it work.
I agree. All right, let's move.
That's my biggest hurdle.
Let's go to Boston real quick. They're going to have to do some salary cap gymnastics with the potential new owner coming in. And Bill Simmons, he's been on record to say it's got to be Porzingis or Drew Holiday. I don't know what move you can make with those contracts. Drew Holiday still has 3 years remaining on a huge contract. Kristaps Porzingis has whatever condition he has right now. I think a guy like Wendell Carter Jr. could help them if they get rid of Porzingis. Xavier Tillman obviously has not been the answer, but Wendell Carter seems like the only kind of move to make here for the guys that they're trading.
I think Boston's in a tough position because Porzingis would have had value had he not had an unknown illness that now could be pretty serious.
For sure.
No team is going to trade for that, I think, right now. And Drew Holiday, they extended him a couple more years at a $30 million price point. I think he's like $35 million. I don't think any team trades for that either. It's a lot of money for a guy who's aging rapidly, who does help a team contend, but it's a lot of money for like a third option when I think he's more of like the 5th guy on the team now, given his age. So I think the Celtics are at a bit of a crossroads, and I don't think neither of them go. Maybe if it makes sense, but I don't see the value being there for either one of those guys.
Yeah, I'm there with you as well. Talking about the Miami Heat a little bit, they seem like another Durant team. All the reports are pointing to them in Minnesota as being the most interested, although I think the Minnesota thing can change as they get deeper and deeper in the playoffs. But just looking at their asset pool, bro, like I think the Rockets and the Grizzlies can put together far better packages than the Miami Heat. They just don't have a lot that people want. Did you mock up some type of trade that you like for them?
Yeah, it's going to save the franchise, and it's going to give them a true number one option to lean on and to lead them to maybe multiple playoff round wins.
Say it with a straight face. Yep.
I think they trade Duncan Robinson, Kyle Anderson, Jovic, and Jaquez with a 2025 first round pick from the Warriors. So the Warriors first round pick that they gave them to get Jimmy Butler, their 2026 first round pick, and a 2030 first round pick. So that's three firsts. And they pair Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, and Andrew Wiggins with Zion Williamson. And Zion Williamson, under Heat culture, turns his career around and leads them to the conference finals next year.
I'll tell you who would run to Miami if this happened. TMZ would make a killing seeing Zion Williamson doing whatever he is doing on the weekends, filming whatever he would be filming. I would love to see Zion Williamson in Miami. It is their kind of only hope. Pat Riley keeps hinting at a bigger name guy. Zion Williamson matches the timeline there. Kevin Durant, I think, would just be a desperate move for them. But with those assets, it was weird that the Pelicans sent Zion to the lottery. That was one of my other takeaways from the lottery. Just seeing him as a representative of the Pelicans with all the reporting that has gone on about the new ownership putting a mandate on the new GM, Joe Dumars, about possibly trading him, sending him as a representative. I don't know if it was a sign that they want to keep him, but it definitely gave me weird vibes for them. And if Miami went out and got Zion in this Eastern Conference with how bad it's going to be, I think if Giannis ends up going to a Western Conference team, we know now Cooper Flagg is going to a Western Conference team. The East is going to be gettable. And you're going to see these mid-level teams like the Miami Heat, potentially the Atlanta Hawks, potentially the Orlando Magic, go out and make some big swings like this to capture this window.
I think Zion, when he's at his best, is a top 15 player in the league. And I think the marriage with him and the Pelicans started off rocky because of the injury scare that he comes with. They wanted to be very cautious with him. So they kind of bubble wrapped him and didn't let him loose at all. And there was always reporting around him, reporting about his weight, reporting about his habits. A lot of things got out there. There was friction between his camp and the organization, and I think he needs a fresh start. I think he needs an organization that is going to put their arm around him and say, hey, Z, come here, we got you. We're not going to let anonymous sources try to ruin your reputation. We're not going to make you look like a bad dude. And I think that right now, Zion's reputation is in the gutter because whenever his name comes up, all I hear is about the women he might be interacting with. All I hear is about the amount of food he might be eating and taking in. Did we watch Zion Williamson this year? Did we watch how conditioned Zion looked this year?
He not
looked
gonna
in the best shape of his life. And all he gets is criticism when he looked like a goddamn bodybuilder this year. He looked like in the best shape of his life.
You're not going to Zion shame me. The reason that's all you hear is because his girlfriends are online exposing text, exposing screenshots. That's why you hear about it. It's not me. And by the way,
it happened once.
Bro, I don't know why you're so mad. I was with you until you talked about Pat Riley putting his arm around a superstar. When the hell is that ever going to happen? When has that ever happened? He didn't even put his arm. He didn't put his arm around Dwayne Wade or LeBron James. It's not going to happen with Zion.
Oh, there's a difference. He didn't do it with Dwayne Wade because he didn't want to pay him, and he didn't do it with Jimmy Butler because he didn't want to pay him. Because Jimmy Butler was asking for $50 million per year, and Pat Riley said, "No, you're too old to be the number one guy, and you're too unavailable in the regular season, so we're not going to pay you that money." I think looking at Zion Williamson, he's going to say this organization limited him, and I'm going to let him loose. I'm going to challenge him. I'm going to challenge him to be the best version of himself on the basketball court. I'm going to get the most out of this guy, and Eric Spoelstra is going to make sure that he's an all-NBA performer. He's going to make sure he meets the 65-game requirement in a season. He's going to make sure that Zion Williamson is the best version of himself and what he should have been coming out of college. That's what the Miami Heat are going to do for Zion.
Do you think that team beats the New York Knicks?
No, nobody beats the Knicks.
I just wanted to see your reaction on it. I don't hate the Zion to Miami idea. Also like the Zion to Detroit idea. Pelicans, again, sending him to the lottery was objectively weird because of all that noise you just said. Jabari Smith seems like another name that could be floated out to Detroit if Houston, if that was a third team to get involved with the Houston situation. But yeah. I think Zion Williamson on the Pistons is a lot better fit than it is on the Miami Heat.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I think the Heat, it's just you have Hero, you have Bam. Zion just gets to be Zion. He gets to be the best player on the team. With the Pistons, they have Cade. So Zion has to fit around Cade, and he could do it because Zion's not a selfish player. But with the Heat, I feel like he's going to be the face, the star, the Zion god that we've been waiting on. Oh, man, I'm getting excited.
What do you have Detroit doing? What do you think Detroit should do?
Mm-hmm. Detroit was an interesting one because I see a lot of trade packages with Devin Booker involved because Devin Booker is from Detroit,
Yeah.
but I didn't go that route. I don't think they go big fish hunting, but they do get a nice fish. I think they trade Tobias Harris. I think they trade Ron Holland, and I think they trade Simone Fontecchio. It makes the contracts work, and they trade 2 first-round picks, and they get Lauri Markkanen. I think Lauri Markkanen gives this team more spacing. It's Cade, Lauri, Duran, Stewart. You have Jaden Ivey coming back next year, and I think he can help improve them. Tobias Harris, Lauri's a big upgrade from him. And really, you're giving up Tobias, who Lauri's better than, and Ron Holland, who's a young player that has potential. But if you're getting back Lauri Markkanen, I mean, yeah, you do it. And then 2 firsts. I like it.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I'm just thinking back to a Jabari Smith, Lauri Markkanen argument we once had. I don't hate it. I think Zion as a number one option is getting you nowhere in the postseason. He has yet to even play a playoff game.
And the last time he played in the playoff, he had 40 against the Lakers.
That wasn't a playoff game. That was a play-in game, which they lost.
I said the
which
play-in,
he left
but yeah,
with an injury.
But he got hurt, and they were gonna upset OKC in the first round had he stayed healthy.
Didn't they get swept?
Now it wouldn't have happened without Zion. I'll tell you that.
Okay, yeah, you're right. It would have been 4-1. I view that just like I view the Grizzlies and Thunder. If Ja's healthy, they get beaten 5 games instead of 4.
Zion is better than Ja. You know that, right?
Who scored 47 in multiple playoff games?
If Zion can't be the guy, what is John Morant? What are the Grizzlies doing with John Morant? They're wasting their time.
John Morant has won a playoff series. He has had multiple 47-point playoff games.
Congrats.
And I guarantee you to look at that series in 2022, Warriors Grizzlies, the future NBA champions versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Who was the best player in the series? Go Steph Curry, John Morant head to head. Ja averaged 37 in that series. Steph Curry averaged 23. I don't think Zion's outplaying Stephen Curry in any playoff series ever.
Zion was better than Ja this year. This year, when they were on the court, when they played, Zion was much better than him. This year, Zion was like miles better. Like it wasn't even close.
They had a bad offense around Ja. We have talked about this. The offense was not built through him, and he still averaged 23.
I want you to put some respect on Zion because I think he's underrated, and he could change.
Can you imagine
if you have Bam and you have Hero and you have Zion?
If the Pelicans ran Zion Williamson to the corner every possession like they did Ja Morant, is Zion averaging 23 from the corner? No. That's not happening.
Maybe if Ja Morant was actually an efficient pick and roll ball handler, then they would have ran more pick and rolls. They would have leaned into it more. But the reason why they didn't was because he's been inefficient to this point in his career.
Really? I just thought back to when they did lean into it. They had a 29-point lead on the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. That's what I thought back to.
Didn't that end in a 4-0 sweep?
It's reminiscent of Zion Williamson not playing in the Pelicans Thunder the year before. Anyways, let's get into a fun Western Conference team. Houston Rockets. Obviously, this is a Giannis team. It's funny that I saw a report yesterday that said the Rockets are really interested in Giannis, but not so much anymore in Booker, Durant, and Zion. Like, I don't even know why that needs to be reported. It's common sense. But is there any names that are off limits if you are Houston? Şengün is the only off limits guy to me because it's only so I could flip him for something else if that Şengün and Giannis pairing does not work. I just want to keep that in my back pocket like an ace to flip it for something else. It's not because I don't think Şengün is like, oh my God, I can't trade him for Giannis. It's just because I still want that back pocket ace to have a different pairing with Giannis.
It's Amen Thompson and it's Şengün. Those are the two for me. Mm-hmm. I think Amen is going to be an incredible player, possibly an all-star next year. I think he could take that big of a leap. Yep. I'm going frisky. I'm going random with the Rockets. No Giannis. This is the first trade they make. It's 2 trades. 2 trades. They trade Fred VanVleet, Cam Whitmore, Tari Eason, the 2025 Suns first round pick, the 10th pick in the draft, and the 2027 Suns first round, and they get Kevin Durant. So the Suns get back Whitmore and Eason, two young wings, Fred VanVleet, a point guard, and their 10th overall pick, along with the 2027 first round pick. So they get their picks back. I think this is the only way they have of retooling around Devin Booker. And then the other trade is they're trading Jalen Green, and they're trading a 2027 first round pick from the Nets, a swap, a 2028 first round pick that they own themselves. And they're reuniting James Harden and Kevin Durant in Houston,
This is
baby.
ridiculous.
James Harden, Amen Thompson, Dylan Brooks, Kevin Durant, Alperen Sengun. That's contending for a championship. Harden goes back to H-Town and brings his city a ring with Kevin Durant as a co-star, with Amen Thompson taking the lead, with Alperen Sengun. They still have Jabari Smith. That's where I'm going. Bring James Harden and KD together. Bring them back again. You know they're friends. You know they want to play in H-Town. Make two of these trades. Bring back some legends to your city.
And James Harden will go 2 of 17 in Game 7. You'll lose in the second round of the NBA playoffs. How fun would that be? This is utterly ridiculous. I know you couldn't wait for this. You had it loaded up. You still have a grin on your face from just talking about James Harden back in Houston. One, this is not happening, just like the Joel Embiid thing, which I admitted would not happen. Number two, I would much rather have Giannis Antetokounmpo, Amen Thompson, and Alperen Sengun than James Harden, Kevin Durant, Amen Thompson, and Alperen Sengun. That's 100%, and it's not even close.
You have Kevin Durant and James Harden.
And you're good for 2 years. You have Giannis, you're good for 8 years.
8 years? Giannis is 31.
He's going to be good until he's 39. Have you not seen the timeline? Look at Kevin Durant. Look at LeBron James. Look at James Harden.
Those are different play styles.
Okay, dude. And we thought LeBron James had a different play style. We don't think Giannis can change his game. Yes, he's downhill.
Giannis at most, 36 years old at most.
Okay, you're getting 5 years, not 2. You're getting more than double the years you would have with Durant and Harden. You're still making my case.
I don't know, man. I like Harden back in Houston and KD.
Yeah, I like the theatrics of it.
Honestly, you have Reed Shepard.
Honestly, as a Grizzlies fan, I like that. I like that.
You have Reed Shepard. You have Jabari Smith still.
Holy shit, they
along
keep
with
Reed
that
Shepard.
starting five.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you mean, Reed Shepard? He's going to be really good. I hope we know that.
Yeah, and Houston's front office believes it. They're gassing him up to trade him this summer. I think from a Grizzlies perspective, I'd much rather face James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Alperen Sengun in the playoffs than Giannis, Alperen Sengun, and Amen Thompson. That's just how it is.
Well, sure. You would lose either way, but sure.
We would lose either way, but I think we would at least have a shot for James Harden not to go in Game 7. You're not going to sit here, and I'm not going to be ultra excited about anything about the Grizzlies as long as Zach Kleiman's winning the franchise. But no, I love it. I love the mock trade. Love the theatrics of it. I just don't think it would result in much success. Orlando Magic, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I've spent time on it the last 3 months talking about Trae Young. That's the move that saves them, and I think I would literally pick up the phone and call Atlanta every single day to check on him or be calling his agent about it.
For the Magic, I'm trying to go get Anthony Simons. I'm trading KCP, Caleb Houston, and Jett Howard in 2 first-round picks. Probably not enough. You probably have to add more to get Anthony, but I think Anthony Simons with Jalen Suggs, you give them a perimeter shot creator, a shooter with Paolo and Franz. I think that makes a lot of sense for that team, and I think Anthony Simons has kind of been wasted in Portland. I think he's much better than what his reputation might show. And if he goes to a team that competes, I think he's going to make a big impact.
Yeah, I would love to see him just get that opportunity of not having to share the backcourt with Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp, and all of the cluster of guards that they have in Portland. I'm a lot higher on Anthony Simons than most people, which is why I would like to see him in a Orlando or a Dallas just to get an opportunity at winning. I think Orlando is a better fit for him, like you said, because the Eastern Conference, and yeah, seeing him next to those guys makes a ton of sense. Golden State Warriors report came out Thursday about them wanting to stay pat and not do anything big. If they were to get the itch to do something big, something that could save them, I think, especially if Curry got hurt again, is I'd be calling about Kevin Durant again. Matt Ishbia is self-admittedly obsessed with Jimmy Butler. I don't know why, but the way he acted during that entire Miami Heat drama about Jimmy and how adamant he was about getting Jimmy, I think it's worth making a call about Kevin Durant and seeing the interest there for it, because I'm not saying the Warriors would have won this series against Minnesota if they had Kevin Durant instead of Jimmy Butler, but they legitimately would have at least had a chance. And we've talked about this before, but Jonathan Kuminga has provided value here, and now the clock is ticking on a decision of his free agency. And you can't, yes, you can try to get a sign and trade, but if you would have traded him 3 years ago, I think the haul would have been so much better than whatever you're getting for a potential sign and trade this summer. That's the real mistake, but I definitely call about Kevin Durant again.
I think that even if they had Kevin Durant, they're going to lose. As long as Steph wasn't out there, it was over.
Mhm.
I think Steph can still be a great player and lead a team on a deep playoff run with this proper support. I think this is another team that the need is quite obvious for me. It's they need a center. They need a center. They need a bigger body next to Draymond, a defensive anchor. And if I'm the Warriors, signing and trading Jonathan Kuminga, I'm attaching Moses Moody with him, along with 2 first-round picks, and I'm gonna go get Nick Claxton from Brooklyn. That's what I'm doing. I'm gonna get Claxton, and I think Steph with AirPods, with Jimmy, with Draymond, with Claxton, it's one of the better starting fives. You still have Buddy Hield coming off the bench. You still have Quentin Post, who can be a good backup big, I think, with another year of experience. You bring back Gary Payne a second. I think that the Warriors need to make a move like this, getting just a center on the team that can play viable minutes.
Joel, to me, it's just that Lakers fit for Claxton is just so much better. And
Yeah,
I
but they're
think
gonna get Walker Kessler.
I know that's why I'm bringing this up. It's like I view Nick Claxton and Walker Kessler almost eye to eye, and I put Claxton ahead of Kessler because of the build that they're looking for. Rob Pelinka is looking for a lob threat, and I think he fits in LA a lot better than he fits in Golden State. I'm not saying it would be a bad trade if Golden State went out and got Nick Claxton, but I still don't think they're winning anything in the Western Conference. Even if I agree, like I said, if Curry went down and Durant was on the team, they're not winning it, but I at least feel like they have a chance. And if you go back and watch that Curry and Durant pairing when they played together, it is the most underrated pairing in the history of NBA superstars, because people just saw how broken their team was, but the unselfishness between both of them to play the way they did, the not to be funny here, but the gravity they both had, I think that pairing is something that can legitimately be that last chance for the Warriors. Even if Steph played in this series, I'm not sure they win. With Curry and Durant, I could see them winning. You can go out and get a cheap center. I don't think Nick Claxton, Jimmy Butler, and Steph Curry are like some type of playoff changing big three for them.
Well, Draymond Green is in the mix. I think
Yeah.
this year Jimmy Butler broke his ass and Steph Curry got hurt with a hamstring injury. Jimmy Butler wasn't able to play as good
Yeah.
as he could play because he fell on his tailbone. So I don't think that Kevin Durant changes things all that much for them, to be honest. If
Yeah, but
if the
Joel,
center depth is rotation is still the same.
when's the last time we saw like Jimmy Butler at an all NBA level? When was the last time we saw that?
I think you could argue before he got hurt against the Rockets.
That's ridiculous. He was not all
He's playing
NBA,
really.
bro. He was not all NBA.
I mean, he
All
was pretty close
star,
to it.
okay, but all NBA is no.
Okay, his
Butler hadn't been
first.
that in 2 or 3 years.
I'm looking at his game log right now in the playoffs before he got hurt. Against the Rockets in game 1, he had 25 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists in 42 minutes. And in game 2, he got hurt. And then in game 3, he had 27 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists off the injury. There was just 2 games against the Rockets where he had 3 points and 8 points. One of them he got hurt. The other games he had 25, 27, 27, 20. I mean, yeah, he got hurt and he wasn't able to elevate his game, but
I know, but
he
Joe,
played well.
you're making my point for me. Durant would average that in that series. He would have those as averages. Those would not be like stick out games or before he got injured games. Like there were 3 and 8 point games. I know he got injured, but that just doesn't happen with Durant if he's on the court.
I mean, Katie's also probably just as injury prone, if not more, than Jimmy.
That's fair. That's why I think it's a fair trade. If they're equally injury prone and at their current age, Durant is a much better player, I make that deal. I make that deal.
So you think the Warriors, even with their current roster, you plop in KD like they're competing? Because I don't.
Yeah, I do think they're competing. If
For a championship.
they were competing with Jimmy Butler. Who knows? They may win that Minnesota series, but I just think it's more Curry insurance too. Not only is the top level peak, if everyone healthy, is better with Kevin Durant on the team, but also you have insurance too.
Okay.
Let's move to the Milwaukee Bucks.
I think the only trade that makes sense for them to get the haul that they're looking for, they're trading Giannis to OKC, and they're getting back J-Dub, Hartenstein, Aaron Wiggins, and 5 first-round picks.
So this aligns with your Timberwolves conference finals prediction. Staying true. Appreciate that. Whose first round picks? Are those all OKC's first round picks?
No, some of them are swaps with the Clippers. Some of them is Philadelphia protected 1 through 8. They also have one for Denver. I think it's in 2029, which Denver might be bad at that point. You never know. There are other first-round picks from other teams.
If I'm Milwaukee and I'm sitting back, and yes, I know Giannis is going to have a say in all this, but I'm really favoring Houston and San Antonio in any potential deal just because, and I'm not saying you're disputing this at all, but just because they own so many other picks. Like I would covet the Phoenix assets that Houston has. San Antonio, obviously now with the number 2 overall pick. I understand the haul, but if I'm trading Giannis Antetokounmpo, I want a Zion Williamson back. If I'm talking with Houston, I'm still asking about Alperen Şengün or just any other young all-star. I know you threw J-Dub in there, but I don't know if that's the caliber of player I would want in a full-blown rebuild, because now we're going back to where we started with this rebuild conversation. Rebuilding with a team that's not winning is not the formula anymore for getting a superstar player in a smaller market. Not to mention, this team can't rebuild because they don't own any of their first picks, which is why you threw in 5 for Oklahoma City. But if I'm Milwaukee, I want one of those guys. You've talked about the Pelicans deal so much. I think Zion Williamson, Alperen Şengün, I'd much rather have those 2 guys over Jalen Williams. Do you agree with that?
I think they are better right now, but I think J-Dub, in terms of like a tradable asset, has the same exact value as Şengün or Zion.
Yep.
Because I think he plays more games than Zion. He's going to be more durable. And with Şengün, they're both all-stars. I think Şengün is a little bit better, but I think J-Dub has the potential to grow into a better player than him. So I think he's just as good of a piece in a trade as those 2.
Yeah. I do want to mention how crazy it is that Oklahoma City's even in this conversation. Like,
yeah, I mean, it makes sense if they lose.
Yeah, it makes sense, but it's crazy how they still have all of these assets and are as good as they are to even be in this position. I think it's amazing. If I'm Milwaukee, like I said, have to get young stars back, and I want a third team's pick, so I'm glad that there was some swaps and stuff in them, because they can't send Giannis to a super team like the Thunder and not get a third team's picks back. And that it has to be a team like Houston. And you're making fun of me, but like, dude, the Brooklyn thing is going to get real. I'm telling you, the Brooklyn thing is going to get real. He wants to be in a big city. And if I'm Giannis, I want to stay in the Eastern Conference, just looking at the West.
Brooklyn has picks to throw at him. They have the cap space. I just don't know how they're going to build a roster that could contend around him.
Swear, I think their bar is a lot lower to contend because of their conference that they're in. And I get what you're saying.
I mean, if you have Giannis and Claxton and Cam Johnson, you have to add more to that. But you know, you have 3 starters filled up in that lineup, and I just don't know what the Bucks would want back. I mean, they don't have any blue chip prospects.
What if the Nets resign
Thomas?
Yeah, wow. What if the Nets resign Zaire Williams? What if that happens?
Oh wow. Oh yeah, that moves things so much for them.
Joe, I appreciate you so much for taking time. Looking forward to next week. Hopefully, we're talking about your Knicks in the conference finals, because I know that I'm picking against them. But that team, watching them and watching that city, I cannot wait to see how far they go, because I'm so happy for you and all the other New Yorkers, bro.
Hey, listen, I appreciate it. I appreciate you for having me on, and we'll be back here next week with the Knicks in the conference finals with the 1-0 lead.
Bold, but I love it.